My fellow Americans, it's Eric Erickson here from God's country, the governor's mansion in Austin, Texas, surrounded by commies and hippies in Austin who have all taken up hole here to avoid God's country that's right beyond the city limits of Austin. Here for the University of Georgia at University of Texas football game, although I can't stay for the game. I just assume, surely I can pull connections and get great tickets. Every single person in America apparently wanted to come to this game. And if I wanted to pay $20,000, I could find a ticket, but my wife would then bury me in the backyard. We also have family obligations this weekend. She was threatening to dig a hole and put me under quickcrete and roses. So I will go home and not see the game, but I'm here for the tailgate party. The governor of Texas apparently has impressive tailgate parties. And I will be here for one. And at some point, I got to find a place that has Shinerbach on tap and sit down and have tacos and beer in Austin, Texas, because that's what you have to do when you come to Austin, Texas, according to my buddy Chip Roy. So in any event, I'm here. We've had the governors of both states on. They were not able to trash talk each other, sadly, because one was here in person, the other by phone, but it's okay. Now, as promised, we have to talk about Donald Trump last night. Here's the problem. This is the ultimate problem for progressives. They don't have a sense of humor. They don't like Donald Trump. The Washington Post headline literally is, "Trump delivers profane below-the-belt digs at Catholic charity banquet." He did say the S word. And he said it wasn't a joke. It was about Bill de Blasio, that he actually did a poop job as mayor of New York. That wasn't in the speech. That was just the truth. Everybody laughed. It was actually a funny moment. But the Democrats lack any sort of sense of humor. And so they couldn't find any humor in anything. The crowd, by the way, there were Democrats on stage who were muffling their laughter. Chuck Schumer looked miserable trying to hold in his laughs. He's like, I can't laugh at this joke about Doug Emhoff, this joke in particular.
A major issue in this race is child care, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep him away. That's a nasty one.
That's a nasty one, he says at the end. I mean, Trump is making jokes about the jokes. I was sitting next to a guy on the plane last night. I was watching the speech. The guy was wearing a University of Oregon, or what is it? Is it Oregon State? Which ones are the Ducks? Is it Oregon, yeah. We're wearing a Ducks hoodie. I mean, listen, totally neutral man. You got everybody else on the plane other than him and me in either UGA or Texas gear, and he's wearing his green sweatshirt, and he is watching MSNBC and keeps eyeing me like, why are you watching? Then he turned on Fox, so I don't know. I thought it was actually pretty hilarious, his lines. Whether you like the man or not, you should be able to laugh, and everybody there was willing to laugh.
Coming in very, very strong, a certain way. I won't tell you what way that is, but Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? He looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
Seriously, Chuck, considering how woke your party's become, if Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president. Do you know what the Democrats took out of that last night? I'm not kidding. This was the commentary on CNN. Let me play you the key line here.
It looks glum.
Hang on. Here it comes.
But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
He called her Kamala. That's what the Democrats on CNN hung their hat on. Why does he call her Kamala instead of Kamala? Why does he call her Kamala? Because he's a racist. He's a racist. You know why he calls her Kamala? Because he's a near 80-year-old man from Queens, New York, who talks like a man from Queens, New York. This is a man who was, until 2 months ago, running against an 80-year-old man who made jokes about needing to speak with an Indian accent in a 7-Eleven. And they wanted to give that man a pass, but not Donald Trump, who says Kamala, like a lot of people say Kamala, because when you look at her name, it's spelled Kamala. Mississippi. Kamala. It's spelled Kamala. Yeah, she pronounces it Kamala. There are a lot of people. In South Georgia, I kid you not, cross my heart, hope to die, handle the Bible. Do you know there are people, and I used to think it was a racial thing because I primarily heard black people say it, but actually it's a non-racial thing. White people in South Georgia and black people in South Georgia, where my wife's family comes from, cannot, and I'm not making this up, I promise you this is true, they cannot say Erickson. They can't do it. It is physically impossible. In South Georgia, your host and this show is not Eric Erickson and the Eric Erickson Show. It is Erica Rickison and the Erica Rickison Show. They cannot do it. They cannot. They are incapable. My wife did not believe me until we got married, and the woman at the DMV kept calling for Christy Arikison. Christy finally came up to her and said, "Aren't you Miss Arikison?" And Christy said, "At that moment, I knew you were telling the truth." It's to scream racism because you have a name that is not John Smith, and Americans may not typically be familiar with it. And say, well, they must be a bunch of race. This explains why the Democrats are losing. They have no sense of humor, and they presume the worst in everyone. Not that this is an 80-year-old man from Queens, New York, who's never run against someone named Kamala before, but, he must be racist and mispronouncing it on purpose. No, actually, what he was doing last night was making some very purposeful jokes, including Democrats were crazy for saying men have periods until he met Tim Walz. That was actually a line. You don't believe me?
I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz.
Actually, he said that. He said that. He actually said. He also, by the way, said that neither Kamala or Tim Walz were there, but it's okay because Tim Walz would tell everyone that he was there. And then he poked fun at the mayor of New York, who apparently, Trump clearly has a good relationship with all these people in New York. He and Chuck Schumer, he was singing Chuck Schumer's praises, saying that might cost him Republican votes, but he was the first guy to write Chuck Schumer a check when he ran for Congress back in the day, even remembered his old campaign office and where it was, said nice things about Eric Adams. Here he is with the mayor.
As I look around the dais, I see all of the usual suspects. For instance, Mayor Adams. I'd like to poke some fun at Eric, but I'm going to be nice. I just want to be nice because I know what it's like to be persecuted by the DOJ for speaking out against open borders. We were persecuted, Eric. I was persecuted, and so are you, Eric. The mayor's dietary restrictions are well known, but I've got to say I've never met a person who's a vegan who liked turkey so much.
Yeah. Okay. So Trump actually has to explain this joke to himself on stage. First of all, I didn't know Eric Adams was a vegan, but he apparently is a vegan. And so Trump says, I never met a person who's a vegan who liked turkey so much. And then literally stops and goes off script and says, did you know I didn't even know about this today because I've been on the campaign trail, but apparently his indictment is purported to be about turkey. He apparently likes turkey, but he's a vegan, and it's not turkey the meat, it's turkey the country. Just like goes off screen. He's reading this. He complained the entire night about there being no teleprompter except for Jim Gaffigan, and he's having to read the speech. But the winning line was this.
Tradition holds that I'm supposed to tell a few self-deprecating jokes this evening. So here it goes. Nope, I've got nothing. I've got nothing. There's nothing to say. I guess I just don't see the point of taking shots at myself when other people have been shooting at me for a hell of a long time and they shoot at.
It's a good line. I'm supposed to tell self-deprecating jokes about myself, but I see no point in taking shots at myself when other people have been shooting at me. Even Jim Gaffigan fell out laughing. A professional comedian who hates Donald Trump found that line very funny. It's true. The best line of the night, however, was about white dudes for Harris.
There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me.
Again, everyone there is laughing. Everyone there is having a good time. The only people who aren't laughing are the writers at the Washington Post and the Democrats who realize Kamala Harris is losing. One last one. This is Trump talking about happy to be back in New York.
It's a true pleasure to be with you this evening. Amazing pleasure. And these days it's really a pleasure anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance.
Okay. I need to address this. I understand there are people listening right now who don't like Donald Trump. I'm not a fan of the man. You should see the hate mail I get from Trump supporters who are furious with me for being critical of him when they think that you've got to be on the team and utter no. I criticize everyone. I criticize myself. I criticize my kids. I criticize everybody, including Donald Trump. But you should be able to point to something like this and say, that was funny. He did a good job. Because he did. Only the really broken partisans can't do that. This reminds me of the woman who emailed me several weeks ago, whose name, I'm not making this up, her name really was Karen. And Karen emailed me because I was talking about you got to love your neighbors, whether you agree with them on politics or not. And Karen gave me this long list of people she could never be friends with: people who believe in genital mutilation, people who believe in supporting communists, people who believe in abortion, people who believe basically everything she doesn't like about the Democrats. I couldn't be friends with those people. Those people are not my neighbors. They're my enemy. Like, one, the Bible says pray for your enemy. Number two, if you're supposed to, if you believe Scripture, you have to be neighborly to those people. How are you ever going to persuade them that you're right and they're wrong if you're not willing to build a relationship with them? If you're not willing to be friends with the person who believes transgenderism is totally fine and boys can become girls, how are you ever going to be able to persuade that person that they're wrong and help them see the light? You're going to treat them as an enemy and you just want to beat them. You're not going to persuade them. You're not going to change their hearts. You're not going to change their minds. It's going to be a standoff that's not healthy for you or for them or for anybody else. And the fact that there are people, and they are partisans of the left, who can listen to Donald Trump's speech last night, say, that's not funny. That's not funny. That lady Karen who emailed me, who's a Trump supporter, is no different from them. And you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like those people. You got to be able to laugh. Y'all, I laugh at the most absurd things. I laugh at things you're not supposed to laugh about. Friends of mine who are Jewish say I have Jewish humor because, Jews laugh at everything. They laugh at tragedy. They make jokes about everything. They've got week-long holidays celebrating like tragic events in Jewish history. And they have fun and they enjoy it. You got to have a sense of humor. And the left has lost their sense of humor. And by the way, I don't think it's a coincidence that as the left has lost their sense of humor, they are losing this election. It turns out that the joy vibes that Kamala Harris was running on were Joy Reid vibes. And that's not a way to win an election. Now, I will leave it to you there as to where those vibes came from, and there's a battery joke in there somewhere, but I will go to commercial break instead. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. Again, if you want to use your voice memo app, and you can email your voice memos to contact@ewerickson.com. Philip will vet them, send them to me so I can play them. You can ask me questions about anything today. It says I don't have a call screener. I got two longtime friends with me here in this front parlor, Kevin and Brad, and they work with Governor Abbott. They set this up. It was their genius idea. They come up with genius ideas on occasion. I do, however, have to announce, this is sad of me. He's worked with Governor Abbott for a long time. I got to fire my friend Kevin because he brought me a diet Dr. Pepper instead of a real Dr. Pepper and lost his job. Now, for you, too, I got to tell you, I fire Philip and Charlie all the time. My wife won't let me officially fire them, so I feel like I'm firing them, and then she hires them back, so I guess Kevin might get his job back. I actually drink Diet Dr. Pepper. But, y'all, we were discussing this before break, and I will just say that for some reason, it's like, you know how you drink a lot of coffee, then you have water, and then you just, like, you go to the bathroom the rest of the day. Diet Dr. Pepper, I like Diet Dr. Pepper. I just can't drink Diet. I mean, I'm going to drink a Diet Dr. Pepper, and then they're going to have to show me where the restroom is. Is it really that age? There was a big Wall Street Journal story yesterday on why the joke really is true that after you hit 40, everything goes downhill. And it's true. It really is true. You hit 40 and things begin to go downhill. You feel parts of your body you did not know that even existed, and the only reason you know they exist is because they hurt. And I'm still doing CrossFit, and I wake up the day after. Like, I had to do this awful exercise the other day. So it was like where you get in the push-up position, you got to touch your shoulders, and you got to do it for a minute. It's like the plank for a minute while going back and forth touching your shoulders. Y'all, I think I've got someone else's shoulders in addition to my shoulders, and because I got stuff that like hurts in a different dimension, and it's not supposed to be that way, and yet it is. I'm just declining. I'm not even 50, and I'm declining. Shut up, Philip. I will fire you again. Okay, nonetheless, my 34-year-old is making age. By the way, I got to say, my son has become a fan of the Tampa Bay Lightning along with Philip. And I made the mistake of starting a group chat with him last night during their game with the Golden Knights, which is my team. My son has been trash-talking me since last night. I suddenly believe in really late-term abortion. He's 15. All right. We'll have to move on. I got to tell you about Hillsdale College before I go to break. Hillsdale is where you should probably be sending your kids because they get great educations from Dr. Larry Arnn and others, except for my buddy Raz. Everybody else who goes to Hillsdale turns out a genius. And if you don't want to go to Hillsdale, you can go to ericforhillsdale.com and get Imprimis for free. You can get their podcast network for free. You can get Larry Arnn's lectures on the Constitution for free. Victor Davis Hanson's lectures on citizenship. All of it. Don't forget the podcasts. You get it all from Hillsdale College at ericforhillsdale.com. Sign up for Hillsdale College today. It is show prep for your mind. It's an education, not indoctrination. It's based on the real history of the United States. Larry Arnn is a genius at what he does. Their mission since the 1800s has been to spread education by any means possible, including for free, to all corners of the American continent. And they've been doing it. They are committed to you, to real education. Go to Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com today. Just subscribe to Imprimis. It's free, and it's great, and it comes to your mailbox. Greetings, friends. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Don't call, because my call screener is killing hogs in Florida today, if they can get down there with all the trees still. And by the way, did you know, true story, as of today, 100% of the people in the state of Florida have power back from Milton. 100%. 11% of people in the state of California today do not have power. Not that there's been a natural disaster. There's just Gavin Newsom in California. It remarkable. 10% of the state is without power today for reasons unknown, while everyone in Florida, in Florida, they've put so much of their infrastructure now underground, and it's a big thing. Now, I want to actually spend a moment here and spend just a little bit more on this humorlessness that's going on here. It's Friday. We can take a big meta topic here instead of dealing with raw politics, because it's a thing coming up. So for example, as I mentioned, when Kamala Harris started her campaign, it was about vibes, and it was a vibes election. So Trump's running on the economy and Kamala Harris is running on vibes. You honestly, objectively, you can't blame a girl for trying because she didn't have anything. She can't run on the economy. People blame them. She can't run on immigration and the border because people blame them. She can't run on foreign affairs because look at the world. So she's got to run on Trump's just a mean, nasty person, and I'm a happy-go-lucky girl. Pay no attention to what my husband's done to girls. And it didn't work. And it shifted. We are, for all intents and purposes, we're 2 weeks from the election. Why? Because every bit of mail and major TV and radio advertisement needs to be designed and finished by today to get on the air on Monday. And then all they can do for the next 2 weeks is get out the vote. And you can see Trump's going to do a lot in Pennsylvania. He's going to do a couple events in Georgia next week. They're going to Arizona some. Harris is actually doing less events than Trump. You've now got Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin doing her ad that features Donald Trump, and you've got Bob Casey in Pennsylvania doing ads. And what's happening? They've gotten angry. They're lecturing people. And this is part of the problem. And I actually do think, I credit, and I can't remember who did it. It was a tweet. And I'm crediting that tweet for reshaping my thinking about what's going on because I think it's absolutely right. The base of the Republican Party right now has some absolutely willfully stupid people. And I know that's going to offend some of you. But when you have a member of Congress arguing that the government is steering hurricanes, and there are people who believe her and defend her, we are surrounded by willfully stupid people. You know, C.S. Lewis in The Abolition of Man, he writes about seeing through a window. When you see through a window, your eyes stop at the garden. You can't see past the garden, but you see the beauty of the garden. And we have a bunch of people on the right now who are doing some of what the left is doing, the just asking questions crowd, the Candace Owenses and the Tucker Carlsons of the world, just asking questions. What they're doing is they see through everything. But when you see through everything, you actually see nothing. You can't see anything if you see through everything. You can't see the beauty. You can't see the joy. You can't see reality. You conjure a fake reality. And you hang your hat on nothing, and you're empty. You're an empty vessel. When you see through everything, you don't see anything. I was talking about that last night at this event for This Stuff Matters, that, so in the Garden of Eden, just to get a little philosophical with you, in the Garden of Eden, when the devil asked Eve, did God really say that about the trees? What he's actually doing there, that word really, it's in Hebrew, it's a deep level of irony in the word. Essentially saying, did God really say that? Of course they didn't really say that. There's a level of irony, a level of sarcasm, what he's saying. And what do you see from some of these people on the right these days? You see that level of irony, that level of sarcasm about everything. Do you really believe that this hurricane was an accident? Do you really believe it was an accident? See, what they're trying to do is they're using sarcasm as a slight, and that slight has power. There's no power behind it, but the word itself has power, and they're calling for you to question everything. And when you question everything, you can stand for nothing. And a lot of people on the right have just gotten dumb. But what's happened to the same people on the left? Frankly, they've gotten mentally ill. They've become governed by their anxieties and their neuroses. They see through everything too. And they see a whole new world where boys can become girls and girls can become boys. And it's their anxieties and neuroses about you not embracing this stuff that guides them, that shapes them, that governs them, that compels them, that pushes them forward. And what happens when you get to that point where you now demand, as I said yesterday, that people utter the lie as truth, that boys can become girls, that when you see the boy and the boy wants you to use she pronouns, it's narcissism. It is a mentally unhealthy state of narcissism, and they're trying to exert power over you by forcing you to use a pronoun that you know isn't true because they want to dominate you, they want to control you. And the moment you are willing to utter the lie, they know they have you. But also, it gets rid of their humor, and they can't laugh. They can't take a joke, and they can't make a joke. The only people you can make jokes about these days are white guys, because they are supposedly the powerful. In the intersectional cult, the white heterosexual Christian male who's married and has a college degree is the most powerful man on planet Earth, and you can make jokes about that. And what do they say? If you make a joke about anybody else, what do they tell you? You're punching down. What does that even mean, you're punching down? I mean, I want to make jokes about the blind transgender Muslim who is deeply conflicted about their. I think that's a deeply funny joke. There's clearly a joke in there. How does this person even know if they're a boy or girl? They can't see in the mirror, and they're Muslim too. Clearly, there's a joke there somewhere. You should be able to. Oh, you can't make a joke about that. That's not funny. That's not funny. That's what everybody on the left says these days. You can't make a joke. And this is spilling out now into the Kamala Harris campaign. And it's how I know they're losing. Because there's no Joy left except Joy Reid, and she's lecturing black men about voting for Nazis. When the Democrats, listen, the Democrats are always lecturers. Have you seen college professors? College professors are always lecturing scolds, but most Democratic strategists, Bill Clinton, for example, he all shucks it out there as much as he can. And even Bill Clinton is out there now essentially saying, yeah, I know that Laken Riley situation, and we've done better vetting at the border. You can't say that, Bill Clinton, because guess who vetted the border? The border czar. Who's that? Kamala, however you want to pronounce her name. You got Barack Obama out there lecturing black men about voting for a woman. The brothers don't want a black woman. The brothers think they're going to be bossed around. Yeah, by the way, you know that's a thing, don't you? I listen, I acknowledge I'm so white when I put on white socks, they disappear. And I realize I am disqualified from talking about the black community because I am so white, they call me reflective. But it's true. I have enough black friends who hang out with me who make jokes about Kamala Harris. This woman put a lot of black men in prison, and now she wants their votes. The men she put in prison for weed, she's going to give it to them for free after she gets them out of prison. Really? Her? Really? The same sarcasm from the Guardian? Really? That's what she's going to do? No, of course she's not going to do that. They don't like her. She doesn't have the lived experience that they've had. And so what's happening now? The progressives are scolding everyone. How dare you vote for a threat to democracy? I saw a guy last night on Twitter. He was responding to a friend of mine, and the friend of mine said, listen, I totally get people who just can't vote for Donald Trump. I can't either. I'm not going to vote for him. This is her, not me. Don't send me hate mail, people. She says, I'm not going to vote for him either. I totally get it. What I can't fathom is just because you can't vote for Donald Trump, you're going to vote for Kamala Harris, whose views and policies are anathema to everything you stand for. And this person, I'll leave him out of it, but he replies, any vote for Kamala Harris is a vote to stop Donald Trump, and that means it's heroic. It's heroism to go vote for Kamala Harris. Really? That's your closing argument? You're a hero for voting for a woman who has wrecked the economy and driven up illegal immigration. There's no joy. There's no laughter. It's bullying, and people don't like bullies. And that's where the Democrats lost the plot of this election. They thought if they get their dementia patient out of the race and they replace him with Kamala Harris, that people would be overwrought, overjoyed, and overcome with the need to make history again like they did with Barack Obama. And that all the white people who voted for Barack Obama to prove they weren't racist would come back to prove yet again they weren't racist. And oh my God, they're voting for Donald Trump. They must really be racist. No, they voted for Barack Obama. It's just you broke the economy. You wrecked the economy. You made their lives more miserable. And now you can't even say I'm sorry. And you scold them and you lecture them and you're bitter and you can't laugh and you can't have fun. And you hear a funny joke. You're like, that punched down. The voters are going to punch you at the ballot box. They're going to punch Donald Trump's name on that screen because of it. You've taken humor out of society. You want to cancel comedians for being funny. You can't make a joke about anything anymore. Where is the joy? Where's the humor? It's left on the cutting room floor of the mental illness, of the anxiety and the neuroses of the Democratic Party that governs them, that drives their agenda. The affluent female white urban liberals, the awfuls, who decide that they have to impose their values on the rest of us because the only way they can have their joy, the only way they can have their eternity is if they impose their will on everyone else. And no one wants that. I try not to use the word Karen because I have a lot of friends who are Karen, but yet the party of Karens, you know what I mean when I say it. They want to impose their will on you, and they're going to scowl at you. They're not going to smile at you when they do it. And people are voting for that. Kamala Harris, when she started the campaign, it actually wasn't a bad strategy. Even as those of us on the right were willing to say it's stupid, it wasn't a bad strategy. You can't run on the economy. You can't run on crime. You can't run on inflation. You can't run on immigration. Run on vibes. Run on hopey-feely. This is hope and change all over again. Hope and change 2.0. Except it's not, because she is the Harris of the Biden-Harris administration. And for several weeks there, it looked like it had thrown Trump off his game, and he was the angry one. She was joy, and he was bitter. She was happy, and he was scowling. And then what did he do? He found his footing, and he started talking about the economy and crime, tying crime to immigration and inflation, and he stayed on message. They got the Laura Loomers and the Steve Bannons and the Roger Stones out of his headspace. And they put him around people who got him focused on the economy, and they got him focused on inflation, they got him focused on crime, and guess what? He started going up in the polls. And all the trends since have been in his direction. And what happened? You can't run an election on hope and joy and hope and change when, first of all, you're not a change, and secondly, your hope goes down because the polling's gone down, and you have no sense of humor to be able to replace it. If you can't laugh when the joy goes away, you can never recover the joy. And all they've got now is poor old Joy Reid on MSNBC lecturing black men, how dare you vote for the Nazis. Remember, in 2020, when the trend lines became that younger black men might be headed towards Donald Trump, the New York Times, not an opinion piece, but an actual reported piece of the New York Times, explained it this way. Young black men have embraced the toxic masculinity of rap music, and it is now shaping their politics. That's how the New York Times explained it. Not in an opinion piece, not in an analysis piece, in an actual reported piece. When you think that way about your fellow Americans and impute the worst to them, and you can't smile and laugh with them, of course they're going to reject you. There's only one campaign out there that looks like it's having a good time, and that's a sign that it's winning, and it happens to be Donald Trump's, who was willing to stand on stage and tell jokes for 30 minutes last night that got everyone in the room, including Chuck Schumer, laughing at him, including Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, having a good time laughing, including Jim Gaffigan, a comedian who hates Donald Trump, laughing at his jokes, having a good time. And the scolds of the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Harris campaign, what are they? They're offended. They're upset. It wasn't funny. Actually, it was funny, and that you're not laughing is why you're losing. Because when you're not funny and the economy sucks, so does your campaign. Now, let me tell you about Americans for Prosperity before I get out of here. AFP would love to have you on their team. They have chapters in virtually every state of the nation. They're the largest leading grassroots organization. They happen to be on our side. If you go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer, you can sign up with them today. Americans for Prosperity will give you all the information you need to persuade your friends and neighbors on common sense conservative solutions. They'll even teach you how to be a door knocker and go next door and talk to your friend who's got the Harris sign in their yard, and they'll give you the facts and figures to convince them to tear up the sign, put a Trump sign in their yard, except they don't really do explicit politics. They just do public policy. So maybe your friend is one of those bitter progressives who hate school choice. Americans for Prosperity will give you the facts and figures to make the persuasive case. It's the way to go. School choice, family-friendly policies, helping small businesses is what they do. Sign up with them today. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Tell them I sent you. Become a great conservative activist. So I sent out my email yesterday, and I'm sorry, this is hyper-local for all of you, but, you know, my flagship station is Georgia. I'm on like 20-some-odd radio stations in the state of Georgia, and there are 3 issues on the ballot in Georgia, and I sent out an email yesterday, and apparently it's only just gone through because I'm starting to get replies from people, but the short answer for those of you listening in Georgia, you're going to have 3 questions at the end of your ballot: a constitutional amendment, and then a referendum, and then a question. Vote yes on all of them. Vote yes on all of them, particularly the constitutional amendment. Vote yes. Long story short, there is a trend at the state level, and it's not just Georgia. Actually, a number of states are doing this because of the extreme inflation of the Biden-Harris administration. There are a number of states that have changed their laws so that your house value for tax assessment cannot increase due to outrageous inflation, that it has to be restricted in the rate your home value can go up for purposes of taxes, so that just because inflation's gone up 20, 30%, your home value can't go up 20, 30% because your tax values are going to go through the roof. A lot of states can and have changed this through legislative action. I think Oklahoma is one of those states that have done this. I know Iowa has restricted it by the state legislature so that people, local governments can't prey upon their homeowners and jack up taxes so much. Every state is different. Every state has its own constitution. Remember, our nation, our states are actually semi-sovereign entities. They've only ceded limited powers to Washington, D.C., and they have all the other powers. And each state has its own constitution. My state is Georgia, and in Georgia, our state legislature doesn't have the power to restrict home value increases. So they've had to amend the state constitution, and it was a bipartisan piece of legislation. The Democrats and the Republicans in the legislature agreed to this. Some states, it can be done legislatively. Some states can actually be done through executive action. But in my state of Georgia, it couldn't be done except by changing the Constitution. It's on the ballot in November, so I'm voting yes because I don't want my local government to jack up my home value just because the Biden-Harris administration's inflation got away from us. The other two, one sets up like a special tax court. The other one is just a question on taxes. So I voted yes on all of them. You may still be getting the email. I'm just seeing the email go through that I sent people yesterday. But anyway, that's what it is. Don't mean to waste everybody's time with it. When we come back, I've got to shift gears internationally because the North Koreans appear to be about to invade Ukraine. People thought Volodymyr Zelensky was making it up. He mentioned it last week. We've known the North Koreans were giving the Russians technology. But now American and European and Australian intelligence has said several divisions of North Koreans are mounting on the eastern or western border of Russia, the eastern border of Ukraine. I want to give you the details on that and also the latest of how they found Sinwar in Rafah and killed him.